Welcome to another best wildcard team video ahead of Game Week 15, and if you haven't used the chip already, I would highly recommend using it now, building a team for the next two game weeks before we get unlimited transfers heading into Game Week 17, which isn't a wildcard, and in the second half of the season, as usual, we will get the second wildcard, which we can use later on. But if you haven't used it already, be sure to use your first wildcard. It can really be beneficial over the next two game weeks. And if you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to drop it a like, and let's try to get this to over 300, and we're looking to push on towards 17,000 subscribers. But without further ado, let's get straight into this video. There are a few candidates for the goalkeeper position, but I would go for Jordan Pickford, who is very easy to get to. He's one of the cheaper options available, and he's also really good in terms of bonus points. He's one of the best Everton assets overall with his saves and also some decent clean sheet probabilities, even over the next two game weeks against Leicester at home and also against Bournemouth away. Leicester are actually the highest scoring team in away matches this season, so you could maybe go against that and go for Robert Sanchez instead, who faces the likes of Wolves, and I think Brighton are actually a really good team to target defensively for the next two game weeks. And you've also got Dean Henderson, but I trust Everton more defensively, and whilst you can go for Patterson, he's coming off the back of a long-term injury and he made a cameo appearance in Game Week 14, so I wouldn't be that confident of Patterson starting in Game Week 15. You've also got Cody and Tarkowski, but I think Pickford's even better value. And then we've got Ward, who actually faces Pickford in Game Week 15, and I would probably favour Pickford, as we'll get onto towards the end of this video in the FPL.team section. And honestly, there's a few other goalkeepers here and there, but the top three for me are Pickford, Robert Sanchez and Dean Henderson, and I would go for either Pickford or Sanchez. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but those are my thoughts on the goalkeepers. Three of these defenders have featured in my recent wildcard team videos, and that's Cancelo and Trippier, who pretty much are always in these videos. They are absolutely exceptional value. They've got some good fixtures. I would not touch them at all. I don't really need to go into much detail. I think they are the two best defenders in the game, period. And Ben White does face Chelsea away, where Arsenal have had a decent record in recent years, but the Game Week 16 fixture is also pretty good against Wolves. So I think Ben White offers really good value if you have enough funds. And to be fair, I would have 0.9 million left in the bank after completing this squad. You could go up to Saliba, who's a bit better for bonus points and maybe for goal threat. But Ben White is even cheaper, and he also has better assist threat and also a really good link up on the right hand side. He's getting into some really dangerous positions on a consistent basis. But now the other two, which are quite new to this team, Luke Shaw, and you can also go for Dalot, but he's one yellow card away from suspension, so I would maybe favour Luke Shaw a little bit more. And watching that game against West Ham, I think Luke Shaw was the more impressive of the two going forwards. He made some really good crosses, probably a bit unlucky not to get an assist for Ronaldo's header, but then you look at Dalot, and I think he's the better one in terms of baseline bonus and also in terms of defensive actions. I think he's the more solid of the two defensively, but because of Luke Shaw's attacking threat, the fact that he has no kind of risk of a suspension and 5 yellow cards, I would go for Luke Shaw for the next two game weeks. But honestly, you could go for either one of them and you would be fine. The amount of squad depth in this team is insane, so even if you go for Dalot and he gets suspended, I don't think that would be a big issue heading into Game Week 16. Now, the other defender is Lewis Dunk, and I think Brighton, like I said earlier, have some good fixtures from a defensive point of view, and you could go for Estupinian, who has really good assist potential, and he also is just a really exciting player to own and watch sometimes. I would go for Lewis Dunk, who is the best in terms of goal scoring probabilities from the Brighton defenders, and also in terms of baseline bonus, apart from maybe Webster. Dunk is one of the better ones from the Brighton team, so I would go for him, but he's also a bit more on the expensive side compared to Estupinian, Webster, etc. So let me know your thoughts on the best Brighton defender and what would you do in terms of the defensive line. But I think it's a really solid back line and it should get the job done over the next two game weeks. We've got an almost entirely new midfield with the exception of Martinelli, who has pretty much featured in every single one of these. And Trossard has featured before, but not so much recently because of the fixtures, yet he has still scored against Manchester City and Chelsea. He's a big game player and he's also exceptional value. And the only one that can rival him really at his price and below in the midfield, apart from Almiron, would be Martinelli. I think those are the three best midfielders. Another question I get a lot actually recently is, would you go for Rashford or Trossard for the last two game weeks? And whilst it's close and Rashford has the better fixtures, I would go for Leandro Trossard. Let me know your thoughts as well. I would be very interested to see. But Trossard, I think, speaks for himself. He's got some good fixtures, maybe not the best from an attacking perspective, but I think Trossard is just the best option that Brighton have to offer. And if there was any Brighton attack I would go for, it certainly has to be him. Martinelli speaks for himself. He faces Chelsea, who he has done pretty well against in recent years. And he also performed really well this summer when Arsenal thrashed Chelsea. Of course, it's only pre-season, but Martinelli can certainly do it against Chelsea, and he also has a decent fixture against Wolves in Game Week 16. For me, Kevin De Bruyne is now the second best premium option out of disposal, and if Haaland is ruled out for Game Week 15, then I think Kevin De Bruyne is a fine substitution for the captaincy. He's probably the best captain on paper, apart from Erling Haaland, and honestly, he's the more nailed-on City midfield at the moment, dare I say. Of course, I would expect Foden to start at least one of the next two, and he's also a great choice, and maybe you could double up on City attack with Kevin De Bruyne and Foden should Haaland be ruled out. But honestly, De Bruyne is fine enough as it is. And then you've got the other two midfielders, Almiron, who's got 7 goals this season and 3 consecutive double-digit returns, which is absolutely exceptional, and I never expected it. And at this point, I would love to have 4 Newcastle players with Nick Pope as well in goal. But unfortunately, we only have space for 3, and we'll get onto that very soon. And Rashford is the last one on this list. He was really good against West Ham, probably deserved more points in general, especially in terms of bonus. But I have to say with Rashford, he's the best United attacker at the moment, especially with Antony with a little problem that he picked up in training. But Rashford, he's not my favourite option, I will admit. I do prefer Martinelli, Trossard and Almiron around his price and below. But he's the next best thing. And this is a really balanced midfield. You're covering a lot of different teams of high quality that are showing some great form. And then we've got the 3 forwards that make this team even better. It has been a while, but Gabriel Jesus returns to the best wildcard team, and it's mainly due to a lack of forward options at the moment. Mitrovic is 1 yellow card away from suspension, the same goes for Harry Kane, and then you've got Ivan Toney, who is suspended in Game Week 15, and then he plays Manchester City in Game Week 16, and I think Gabriel Jesus can do a really good job. He even scored in this fixture last year for Manchester City at Stamford Bridge, and Gabriel Jesus performed really well against Nottingham Forest. He just needs to improve his finishing, really, and that has been the story of his career. He's a really good player overall. His finishing does leave something to be desired at times, but still a quality player, and I think he could get plenty of points in the next 2 game weeks. If you have any other suggestions, then let me know. Maybe Darwin Nunez, Firmino, Scamacca, or Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I would probably go for Gabriel Jesus if you have the funds. And then Erling Haaland, if he is ruled out, a really easy switch to Harry Kane can be made, and you've also got more money left over as a result. But Erling Haaland, I would keep him in this wildcard team, and I would only get rid of him if he is ruled out for Game Week 15 pretty much. And then we've got Callum Wilson, the man of the hour, with a 19-pointer in Game Week 15. Absolutely exceptional stuff. And he faces Southampton away and Chelsea at home. I think he could get plenty of points over the next 2 game weeks. And honestly, a triple up in Newcastle, I don't really care about the Chelsea fixture, to be honest. The same goes with the Arsenal players. They are 2 of the best teams in the league at the moment, and I will triple up on them. It's as simple as that. And going into Game Week 17 with the unlimited transfers, and we'll cover that very soon, it would be very similar to what you would probably go for in Game Week 17. So you would be a bit ahead of the curve for the next 2 game weeks, and that's why if you have the wild card in your back pocket, use it now, and you can get even more points than those that are going to be struggling with a lot of injury problems, suspensions, and maybe some weak players over the next 2 game weeks. So let me know your thoughts on the best wildcard team, and a bit of a correction actually. On the FPL website, it says I have 1.1 million left over in terms of funds rather than 0.9 million, which I said earlier in this video. But now let me show you how this would line up in Game Week 15 using FPL.team. I'd highly recommend using that website. So let's get straight into that one. Everton and Leicester face off in Game Week 15, but I would slightly favour Pickford because Everton are at home, and I also trust them a little bit more defensively, despite the fact that Leicester have improved a lot in recent weeks. And I would go for Trippier and Cancelo, of course, as always. And the third defender in Game Week 15 would be Luke Shaw away to Aston Villa. But to be fair, Lewis Dunk is not a bad option away to Wolves, and Ben White isn't the worst option, but probably the worst of these 3. Just in general, if you have him in your normal team, I think it's completely fine in Game Week 15. Then I've gone for Martinelli, Trossard, De Bruyne, Almiron and Rashford. It's a really solid midfield, probably one of the best midfields you will see all season, at least for the first half. Let's wait and see what the second half of the season has in store for us. And Kevin De Bruyne would be my captain if Erling Haaland is ruled out or we have doubts about him starting. But if we have some inklings of Haaland starting, then I would captain him, and Kevin De Bruyne could be the vice, although I typically suggest to sometimes vice captain someone from a different team just in case a game is suspended, and we've got plenty of suspensions over the last few seasons. We shouldn't get any more for the time being, but honestly I just don't want to jinx it. And then the 2 forwards would be Erling Haaland and Callum Wilson. But remember, if Haaland is ruled out, you can captain Kevin De Bruyne, and you can also go for Harry Kane in place of Erling Haaland as a like-for-like replacement. And in terms of the bench, it would be Ward there, with Gabriel Jesus first on the bench, Lewis Dunk, and then Ben White in that order. If you have any kind of objections or or maybe suggestions on how to improve this team, I'm all ears. And thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's get this video to over 300 likes, and let's also push on towards 17,000 subscribers. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and you can also become a patron or a channel member. The links are in the description below. The same goes for the FPL League and the Discord server. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 15 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.